Hey everyone, in this video I will show you how you can add a blockchain-based authentication to your Next.js application. We will use Metamask wallet as our auth provider and store the user information in Fauna. Let's get started. Okay, so we are here in our terminal, and the first thing we're gonna do is to create a new Next.js application. So I'm gonna type in npx create next app and our app name. So I'm going to call it auth app. All right, so this is going to create our new application. So let's just wait for it to install. Okay, so after it is done bootstrapping, we can cd into our application and we can open it up in our code editor. So here it is. Okay, so next thing we're gonna do is we're going to install a couple dependencies. So I'm going to install Web3 package, Web3 token, JS cookie, and FaunaDB. Description for each of these packages will be provided below in the video description. All right, let's go ahead and install these. Okay, so after all the dependencies are installed, let's run our application with npm run dev and visit localhost 3000. And there you have it. Application is working as expected. Okay, so we are here in our code editor, and the first thing we are going to do is we're going to go to pages and index.js file, and here we're just going to get rid of everything. Okay, so let's get rid of that. We also don't need head or image, so I'm just going to get rid of that. And here I am simply going to create a new button, and the button, on button click, we will prompt the user to do a Metamask authentication. So let's create a button, and on button click we are going to fire this login function, and I am going to make this an async function and save. Okay, so now we jump back to the browser and you should be seeing this right now, and obviously this doesn't really do anything, so let's just change that. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to bring in the Web3 library. So let's say Web3 from Web3. And then we are going to initiate a new Web3 instance, and we're going to say window.ethereum because we're using the Ethereum Metamask wallet. And then we are going to await the enable. We're going to await an action from the window Ethereum to enable. And then from there, once the user interacts with the wallet, we are going to retrieve the public address of the user using Web3 ETH get accounts. And here you can see I am taking the first account because in a wallet, a user can have multiple accounts. And then we're simply just going to console log the address. All right, so let's save that and head back to our browser, and make sure you do have this Metamask wallet installed, otherwise this is not going to work. So I'm in my Rinkeby test network. Okay, so let's try to log in, and as you can see, it spits out my public address of that account. All right, so we're back in here in our code, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring in the Web3 token library. All right, so let's go ahead and bring that in here. And then using this Web3 token library, we can create a signed message. So to create a signed message, we just simply call this Web3 token the sign function. And here we can pass in the address that we got from our previous step. And then using the address, it is going to create a signed message. And here you can see that I specified 1 hour. So the signed message will be valid for 1 hour. Okay, next we're going to send this signed message to our backend. So let's save that. Next, we send this signed message to our backend function using a HTTP call. So here I'm making a fetch HTTP post call and sending this signed message to our backend. All right, so let's go ahead and create our backend function. So we're gonna go to the API folder and create a new function called user.js. And here, the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna bring in the Web3 token, and then we're gonna define a handler function, and this function will get a request and a response parameter. And in the request parameter, we have the request body, and this request body is coming from here. So this body, so we can just get the signed message from that request body, and using the Web3 token, we can verify the signed message and get the public address of the wallet back. And then we're gonna find the user in our database and return a token. So for now, I'm just going to return some fake string just to make sure everything's working. Okay, let's save that and let's test it out in our browser. Okay, so let's test this out in our browser. So now when we hit login, the Metamask will open, and when we hit sign, we'll see that we are making a call to the backend function, and it is returning some token, which is our fake token string. Okay, so next we're going to create a new database to save our user information. So head over to dashboard.fauna.com, and I'm already logged in, so I'm just going to create a new database, and let's call it auth users. And for region, I can select classic and create the database. All right, so now we're gonna create a new collection. Let's call this collection user collection. So user, and hit save. All right, new collection is created. We need to create a security key to connect to our Fauna database from our Next.js application. To do so, head over to Security tab in your Fauna dashboard, and then you can select New Key. And here, we can select the database for which we're creating the security key for. And for role, I'm just going to select Server. Then I can give my key a name. So I'm going to call it Next.js auth and save it. And it is going to give us the secret key. Now I'm going to copy this and go back to my code, and here I'm going to save that key as an environment variable. So .env, and I'm going to call this fauna secret and copy paste it. We also need a env local file. So let's create a .env.local, and we can just copy paste this. So the .env local is used for local development, and the .env file is used when you deploy it to Vercel. Okay, so let's go back in our browser. We have to do one last thing here. So let's go back in our browser. We have to create an index. An index is used to query by a specific field. In this case, we want to create an index so we can query users by their public address, the public address of their wallet. So let's go ahead and create a new index. We're going to select user as our collection. We're going to name this user by public address. And in the term, we can specify the field that we're going to query by. So in this case, it's going to be public address. And we can also make it unique because every user will have a unique public address. All right, so go ahead and save it. All right, so that's done. Now we're ready to query the user. Okay, so back here in my user.js file, So the first thing I want to do here is to create a new Fauna client so we can query the Fauna database. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is import client from FaunaDB and then initiate a new client. So const server client, new client, and oops, and here for secret, we are going to import the process env fauna secret. Let me see what I named it. Okay, this one. All right, perfect. Okay, so for the next step, we want to find a user by this public address. So let's go ahead and query the database. So const user await and server client dot query. So we're trying to look for a user that has this public address. And in the query, we can use the get function from FaunaDB. And we are going to use the match function. And we're going to match an index. And this is going to be the index that we created. So user by public address. I think that's what we named it. So user by public address, that's the one. And then we simply just pass in the address here. All right, okay. And I also want to wrap this in a try catch. So if the user is not found, then we are going to have to handle that error. All right, so right here, let's comment this. So find a user in DB with public address. And now when the user is found, we want to create a new token for that user. And if the user is not found, register a new user with the public address. All right, perfect. All right, let's handle the error case first. So if the user is not found, we want to create a new user. So error code, and it is going to give us a not found error. So if nothing is found by that public address in the database, we want to create a new user. Okay, so you can say const new user, and then await register new user. And we're gonna have to create that function. All right, so this function will take in the address as a parameter. And now let's go ahead and create this function. So const register new user on public address. And then, okay, here we can return server client dot query. And here we can create a new record in our collection. So we're going to use the create function from Fauna. So already auto imported for me. All right, so here create and then collection and auto import it. That's cool. And the collection that we want to create this user in is the user collection. And for the data, oops. And for the data, we just specify that we are trying to record the public address. All right, so that should be it. And that should generate a new user. Okay, so once a new user is created, we can use the reference of that user to generate an access token. Go ahead and create an access token based on this newly created user. So access token, await create access token. So I'm creating a new method, new function here, create access token. And I'm going to pass in the user reference. So new user ref.id. And then I'm going to specify how long this access token will be valid for in seconds. So this is roughly 30 minutes, I believe. All right, so let's generate this function. And this function will have ref and TTL, time to live, as parameters. All right. Again, here we're going to do return server client query. And we're going to bring in the create function from Fauna. I believe it's already here. Okay, create function from Fauna. And then we're going to specify that we're creating a token. So tokens. All right. And then we're going to specify an instance. Oops, instance. And the instance is simply whatever the collection that we're trying to make a token for. So in this case, it's going to be the user collection, and then the ref would be the ref that is passed in as a parameter in this function. All right, now now for our data, we need to specify the type of access we want to provide. So data, and the type would be access, because it is an access token, and then TTL, how long it's valid for. So I'm going to use the time add function from Fauna again, and I'm going to use the now function and TTL in seconds. So what this does is it's telling Fauna that, hey, create a token that is going to be valid from now till 30 minutes, or whatever the TTL in seconds that's passed in. Okay, all right. So that's that. Okay, next we are just going to return this access token. So let's get rid of this. And here, what we can do is we just return our access token. Now let's copy this and do the same for when the user is found. And here, is it a new user? We can just replace that. Okay. Also, I think this is supposed to be name and not found. All right, awesome. And now let's try running our application. The application again with npm run dev, and let the server start, and let's go to localhost. It's compiling. Okay, now let's try to log in and sign, and you'll see that we're going to get a token. All right, so let's destructure this object a little bit. So let's go back to our user.js file, and we're going to say secret dot access token dot secret, and access token dot secret. Okay, let's go back here, Let's try to sign in again. Now you see that a token is getting returned. So next, let's use this token to query some resources in Fauna. Go back to Fauna dashboard. So dashboard.fauna.com, and I am already logged in. So let's go to our database. And here, let's create a new collection. Okay, I'm gonna call it movie. Okay, save it, and then add a couple documents to our movie collection. So I already have some of them pre-saved. All right, let's add that one. Let's add another one. Oops. And let's add this one as well. All of these movies that we just added, so this movie collection, we're going to query this collection using the access token we generated. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so back in the index.js file, we can capture the response from our function, from our API function, and we can destructure the token. So await response.json, and we can then save this token as a cookie. So let's make this cookie, so let's make it so that the cookie expires within an hour. So we're going to create a new date, and then new date, don't get a time, I believe, and plus 36 seconds. So 3600 seconds times 1000, so that will be 1 hour. Okay, all right. So this cookie will expire 1 hour from now. So cookie.set fauna auth, and then save this token, and we can give it a parameter of expires within 1 hour, and we're using the cookie library, so the JS cookie library. So let's bring that in. So I am going to say import cookie from JS cookie. All right, so next we also need to create some sort of state to see if our application logged in state, authenticated state or not. So let's do that. So let me bring in use state from React, and then is logged in, set logged in, and we use a state. Let's make it false. So once the cookie is set, we can say that the user is logged in. So set state, set logged in to be true. Okay, perfect. And then what we can do, if the user is logged in, don't show the login button. Instead, show them a button where they can click and query the data. So let's do that. So if the user is logged in, then show them a different button that they can interact with and query data. So query movies. If the user is not logged in, then go ahead and prompt them with this button. And there you go. Okay, all right. Okay, so on query button click, we want to query all the movies. So let's go ahead and attach an action. So query movies, and we are going to create a new function. Now let's go ahead and make this async function. All right. Okay. And in order to query the movies, we need to get the auth token. All right. So cookies.get fauna auth. And here we need to create a new Fauna client. So const, and this is happening in our front end. So Fauna client await new client, and the secret is secret is going to be the auth token. Okay, now let's go ahead and actually import the client from FaunaDB, Fauna library. So import client from FaunaDB. All right. Okay. And using the client, we can query the movies. So const movies, and then we can say await, and fauna client dot query, and here we can put our query statement. So map. Now let's make sure we import map from Fauna. So map, and then paginate. Okay, paginate from Fauna. I should auto import it. There you go. It auto imported for us. And then inside paginate, I'm going to say documents, and then collection. And this is going to be the movie collection. And let's also make a lambda to return all the movies. So x get x. All right, and we can just console log this here. Console.log movies. All right. Run the application and see how this is working. Okay, so try to log in. All right, query movies. Let's try to query. And we get an error, so documents is not defined. So let's go back and take care of that. So I think it didn't import documents. All right, so let's do it again. And collection is not defined, so let's take care of that as well. All right, and let's clear the console. And get is not defined. Okay, let's get that as well. And there you go. Resource data. Wondering why is the data coming back as an empty array? Now that is actually expected. This is because we haven't defined a user role for our token. So our token technically cannot query the movie collection yet because we haven't given it a permission. So head over to Fauna and go to security, and here go to roles and create a custom role. Now in the membership, I'm going to add user as our member collection, and let's call it auth role. And in the privileges, I'm going to add the movie collection, and I'm going to give it a read and create access. Okay, now let's save it. And now if we go back to our application and let's refresh this, and let's try to log in again. All right, let's log in. Let's query the movies. And now you'll see that data is coming back. Go to console and we'll see that the movie data is shown over here. So that's how you add a blockchain-based authentication to your Next.js application. I hope you enjoyed this video. All the code for this session will be provided in the video description.